Benvenuto, welcome to Cherry Hill Home Cooking. My name is Mark. Today we're going to make pie crust. I am going to cheat a little bit and we're going to do it in the food processor. But if you don't have a food processor, you can do it the old-fashioned way with just a pastry cutter inner or whatever that's called. We've used this, I think, in our biscuit recipe that we did. But over the last couple times that we've made a cake, whether it be a sweet cake like a few episodes ago, we made the chess pie. I used a frozen pie dough, and I know we've made a couple other pies, whether it be savory or sweet, and we've used the ready pie crust. So any of you that have been watching us, or especially our earlier videos, you know that pie crust is my nemesis. I hate making it. You might not be able to tell, but I've got flour all over me. But in preparing to get this ready, that's one of the reasons I hate doing a pie crust, is because it's messy. But I think I have found a method that reduces some of that mess. So now, one thing I want to say is you can make this pie crust either savory, meaning if you're going to use it for like a chicken pie or a pot pie or something, or you can make it sweet, like we're going to do this because we're going to use this pie crust for a fruit pie. If you're going to do it as savory, you omit the sugar. Anyway, pie crust is just a few simple ingredients, right, guys? We've got all-purpose flour, okay? I did make a mess earlier, and I did most of my flour. Of course, all the measurements we'll put in the recipe, but we need 2 1/3 cup flour. So I've got 1 1/2 in there. And we've done flour like this before. We just kind of put it in with a spoon, all right, so that we don't want to pack it down, and then just level it off, and in it goes. All right, so we're done with the flour. So the next thing we need is 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, I always use kosher salt in almost everything, kosher salt. If you're using table salt, reduce it, or fine salt, reduce it to 1/2 teaspoon. And we can put that in with our flour. Now, as I said, I have over the last couple weeks, I've been searching the internet for a really good pie crust made in the food processor. And I think I've came across a couple, made a little bit of what I think was improvements or adjustments. And we made one last week, and I made a pie, and I think Wade will even attest it came out delicious, right? Yep. Now, for years I've used, for a thumbs up, for years I've used, just the Pillsbury ready-made pie crust, and it's delicious. It makes a nice pie, but it truly does make a difference when you make your own homemade crust. So for this recipe, one of the recipes I found, it called for 1 1/2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Okay, so a tablespoon, 3 teaspoons is in a tablespoon. So we're going to use 1 tablespoon. That's not quite full. So again, as I said, if you wanted to do this as a savory crust, omit the sugar. And so there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. So that means we need 1 tablespoon plus 1 1/2 teaspoons will give us our sugar we need. All right, we can put that aside. Look at that, more flour. Where does the flour come from? It's like, now, I said this crust was delicious, not low fat. So this is going to give us a nice flaky pie crust. So we've got here 1/2 cup or 8 tablespoons of nice cold butter. All right, and I've just chopped it up into little pieces. You can do it however you like, slices, pieces, but cut it up a little bit. And we've got 8 tablespoons of vegetable shortening. All right, and then we're going to need some cold water. Now, the cold water you're going to need is going to be anywhere between, maybe 1/4 and 2/3 of a cup. It's not going to be 2/3 of a cup, so don't just pour 2/3 of a cup in there and then put it in your dough. It comes down to tablespoons, and of course, as we all know, dough, sometimes it depends upon the humidity, it depends on how hot it is, so on and so forth. So we're going to go cautiously with it, and we're going to put it in by the tablespoon. All right, so believe it or not, guys, that's all we need. All right, so our first step is we've got our flour, salt in the food processor. Let's put it on tight and give it a 1 or 2 pulses. Get everything mixed together, meaning the salt and the flour. All right, and we can actually do this all at once. All right, so opposed to all at once, just dumping it all at once. Let's kind of evenly distribute our pieces of butter and shortening into our dough. So they say, of course, the secret to a flaky crust is the butter is cold and it bursts when it goes in the oven. Now, of course, it has to be cold when you put it in there because you want it to the dough to come together the way you want. But yeah, I've never quite understood that because we refrigerate it before we use it anyway. So, and then we can also just go ahead and throw our shortening in there in pieces. Shortening's a little bit harder to cut up than the butter, obviously. So this is just Crisco vegetable shortening. Sometimes you'll see a recipe that is, only calls for butter, and it either doubles or at least 1.5 times the butter. Like I said, this is one of the recipes that I kind of fiddled around with, and it made a really nice pie crust. So we can set that aside. All right, so we've got everything in there just loosely. And so at this point, this is where, if you had this in a bowl, you would be using your pastry cutter to cut your pastry in and kind of loosely get your flour incorporated into the butter, but not like we're making a cake. All right, so we'll give this a couple pulses. So we don't want this totally mixed in, but we want it to be, kind of like really coarse sand. Maybe a couple big pieces here and there. Let's take a look at it. Oops, and I'll give it a little stir down. It also depends upon how, if you're using a processor, guys, how powerful your processor's motor is. Now, very important, this is for a 2 pie, or a top and a bottom, for an 8 to a 10.5, or an 8 to a 10 inch pie plate. All right, so now if you only need 1 pie shell, I would still go ahead and use these same measurements, make 2, cut it in half, and you can freeze this. This, the holidays are coming up. This will hold in the refrigerator for a good couple months, in the freezer, I should say. So even if you were just going to make 1, you only need 1 pie, I do too. I've tried it with 1, and I don't think it comes out as well. And I've tried it just halving everything. All right, so see our pieces are still, our butter was nice and cold. Still a little bit coarser than I want it. You see you got some like really big chunky pieces. All right. I'm going to let that spin a couple more times. Go to high. And I think that's good, guys. We'll give it one more pulse. We'll give it one more little push down. There's my spoon. Yeah, look at butter, flour and butter all over the place. That's all right. All right, so then we're going to put it on low, and we don't want to put our ice cubes in there, but I'm going to start just adding a tablespoons at a time. And you're going to see this is going to start come together really nicely. 2. Great. And you'll see, oh, by the way, I have my pastry hook on, or my pastry paddle on there. And as you can see, it's starting to come together nicely. We probably need at least 1 more. think we'll need one more. I just want to get that little side down. Now the first time I made it, I think I made my dough just a little bit too wet. But not being an expert at this, that looks pretty good to me. Now I'm just going to let it spin around and see if it will all gather together. And it's starting to do that. That looks perfect to me, guys. Look at that. So that's kind of what we want. We want it to be like Play-Doh. It will stick together if you press it. It doesn't all fall apart. All right, now, what we're going to do is, for our purposes today, we're making the dough. So we're just going to kind of pour this into a bowl. Get all our little bits and pieces. And we don't have to, of course, for the pie crust, you don't do kneading. This is a short pastry, so we're just going to kind of work that into a ball till it all comes together. Now, I know you're all thinking, Mark, why have you been so afraid of this? I don't know. I just have never had luck making pie pastry. All right, guys, believe it or not, that is pretty much it. Now, before you use this, so you can see it's nice and smooth, you might not be able to pick it up on the camera, but there's little chunks of butter here and there. So pat it into a nice kind of sized disc. And then, like I said, you could put it just in the refrigerator like this, because this then has to chill for a good couple hours. I'm going to cut it in half, roughly, because this is going to make two. So you can see how nice that looks in there. All right. And so this is one pie crust. And we've got our second one. All right, so then what you want to do is you want to put this in some saran wrap. So you can't go ahead and make you can see right there, you can see a nice chunk of butter. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but there is a little bit of flakes in there. Did it? Get it? Yep. All right, so we need our saran wrap. That is, but this is a new box of saran wrap. So I don't know what I did when I opened it, but it'll be fine. So then we want to pat it out, pop it in there, and cover it up well. Then, like I said, if you got to let this rest in the refrigerator, I would say at least a good couple of hours, all right? At least 2 hours. Then what you want to do is about 15 minutes, take it out of the oven, out of the refrigerator, about 15 minutes before you're gonna start to roll it. I know, huh? Makes strange how we make it cold, then we warm it up. But if you try to roll it right from the refrigerator, it's gonna give you a hard time. All right, so like I said, if you were gonna make a double crust, there you've got your double crusts, all right? Now, if I was gonna freeze it, I would probably wrap it up a couple more times just to make sure that it was nice and airtight. Throw it in the freezer, and you're ready to go. In just a little over 2 months, it's gonna be Turkey Day. So you'll be all ready to make your pie. All right, so that is our pie crust. And you guys are gonna have to wait till our next episode to see what we make with our pie crust and see how it comes out. Anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed making pie crust with me, or I should say, I hope you make pie crust and be ready to make a pie with us next week. I'll let Wade decide whether he wants to put in there what kind of pie we'll make next week. But all right, well guys, thank you so much. Keep your fingers crossed that my pie crust comes out good next week. See you later. Ciao.